The National Desk, America's News Now.
Heavy snow and ice bringing dangerous travel conditions to a large part of the country where the biggest impacts are being felt now. Then an increase in threats to Americans at home and abroad as the Israel-Hamas war expands, what U.S. officials are now warning about. And COVID cases surging, how a new variant could be contributing to a spike in respiratory illnesses. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Eugene Ramirez, and right now a winter storm is impacting a large area of the country. Parts of Nebraska, South Dakota, Kansas, Colorado, Wyoming, all under blizzard warnings, and then in North and South Dakota, some under ice storm warnings right now. Heavy snow and freezing rain has caused widespread road closures and some dangerous travel conditions, with some drivers facing up to 75-mile-per-hour wind gusts. Now, this storm also affecting air travel. Take a look. 5,000 delays within, into, or out of the U.S. A flight tracking site FlightAware reporting some 150 cancellations now. More than 170 flights were delayed at Denver International Airport. More than 20 canceled there. Atlanta and Charlotte also dealing with some travel backlogs. Now, TSA says the Friday before Christmas was the busiest day at security checkpoints during the pre-Christmas travel period. 2.75 million people screened on December 22nd. That's up from about 2 million in 2022. Now, the high travel volume is expected to continue through New Year's Day. And Israel has expanded its attacks into central Gaza refugee camps after warning residents there to evacuate. And most of Israel's campaign had so far targeted the north and south. Refugees are running out of places to shelter safely now. Israel continues to resist international calls to wind down its campaign against Hamas.
Destroying Hamas is a prerequisite for a better future both for Israelis and Palestinians. You won't have a demilitarized and de-radicalized Gaza without first destroying Hamas. You can't have reconstruction in Gaza, rebuilding the lives of people, without first getting rid of Hamas.
To the Hamas-run health ministry in Gaza reports that nearly 21,000 Palestinians have been killed, including civilians. 85% of Gaza's population has been forced from their homes. More than 100 hostages taken in Hamas's October 7th terror attack remain captive. And this comes as a confidant of the Israeli prime minister is meeting with the White House and State Department officials today to discuss the future of the conflict. Meantime, President Biden ordered counterstrikes in Iraq last night after an attack drone hurt 3 American service members, leaving 1 in critical condition. The White House says the strikes targeted 3 locations used by Hezbollah and affiliated groups. And according to U.S. Central Command, these airstrikes probably killed multiple militants, but not civilians. National correspondent Atra El-Nashar has more on how the Israel-Hamas war is escalating threats against Americans at home and abroad.
In the wake of Hamas,
the U.S. under a growing threat of attacks by extreme actors for its staunch backing of Israel. A top Iranian commander says the U.S. and its allies could soon see the closure of the Mediterranean Sea and other waterways. It's unclear how, but it does follow attacks against commercial ships in the Red Sea carried out by Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen.
These attacks are impacting global trade and commerce, negatively impacting the economies of nations around the world.
Threats against Israel's allies intensify as conditions in Gaza get worse. This footage shows the aftermath of Israeli strikes Sunday on the Al-Maghazi refugee camp that killed more than 100 people, according to the Hamas-run Ministry of Health, which reports a death toll of more than 20,600 since October 7th.
There has been no significant change in the way the war has been unfolding in Gaza. There is no effective protection of civilians.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says it will be a long fight as global pressure is building on Israel to transition to more targeted operations in the interest of sparing civilian lives. Here in the U.S., the Department of Justice says it's received more than 1,800 reports of threats or other tips connected to the conflict in Israel and Gaza. Here's Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco.
We have this range of ideologies that can motivate and inspire individuals to violence.
FBI Director Christopher Wray and members of Congress also concerned about the potential for a terrorist attack in the U.S.
The threat levels at our all-time high, October the 7th, put gasoline on a fire.
Law enforcement and security officials urging Americans to be vigilant, especially through New Year's Day, as public gatherings could be targets for violence. In Washington, I'm Atra El-Nashar reporting.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken will meet with Mexico's president tomorrow. Now, right now, the largest migrant caravan in a year is headed toward the United States. An estimated 7,000 migrants hoping for asylum, many of them coming from Central America, Venezuela, and Cuba. Secretary Blinken's visit aims to establish new agreements with Mexico to alleviate the impact these new migrant arrivals are having at the border and beyond. The FBI and local officers are investigating alleged threats against the judges involved in Donald Trump's Colorado ballot case. Investigators say they're looking into social media threats targeting the 4 state Supreme Court justices who ruled in favor of disqualifying Trump from the 2024 primary ballot in Colorado. The judges ruled Trump is not an eligible candidate because of the 14th Amendment's insurrectionist ban. That ruling on hold now while Trump appeals. Police in Georgia are trying to figure out who swatted Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene's house on Christmas Day. Police say a call came in through a suicide prevention hotline, a man claiming he shot his girlfriend and then would shoot himself. But officers confirmed with the Georgia Republican security team that that claim was a hoax. Swatting is a prank call to send officers or SWAT teams to a person's home. A lawsuit challenging Alabama's ban on gender-affirming care for minors will go to trial in April. The DOJ was seeking a hold on the case until appellate courts decide if they can hear related petitions. Well, a U.S. district judge declined to pause, but says a stay might be appropriate later if those petitions are granted. Plaintiffs have asked the U.S. Supreme Court to review a decision allowing bans in Kentucky and Tennessee to remain in effect. In Colorado, police there still searching for suspects in a Christmas Eve shooting at the Colorado Springs Citadel Mall. 1 man was killed, 2 were seriously hurt. Officials believe this was a targeted attack. Police are asking anyone with information to come forward. In the coming weeks, 2 U.S. companies are set to launch unmanned spacecraft to the moon. It's been more than 50 years since the U.S. beat the Soviets to put the first man on the moon, but now another space race is underway, this time with China. And there's concern that China might win this time around. Kayla Gaskins has more.
The U.S. and China taking their rivalry to outer space.
Space is a place of extraordinary opportunity.
Vice President Kamala Harris outlining America's goals at the December National Space Council meeting.
The United States will return astronauts to the lunar surface. We will establish the first lunar base camp and the first station in lunar orbit.
The problem is China could get there first. The Chinese are rapidly advancing their space program, often catching American officials off guard.
New challenges have arisen, including from our strategic competitors.
The winner of the race would likely set the parameters for future lunar exploration. This includes mining resources on the lunar surface and establishing settlements. Both nations are using the moon as a step towards putting humans on Mars.
Right now, what we want to make sure is that China doesn't control space. We don't have to control it, right? We can share it, but we know that China doesn't share. China wants absolute control.
To advance their position, the United States is building an international lunar coalition, the Artemis Accords. 33 countries are now members.
Combining our resources, scientific capacity, and technical skill with that of our allies and partners around the world.
China creating a competing international coalition. Egypt, the latest country to join in early December, bringing the coalition to 9 countries, including Russia, the UAE, and South Africa.
NASA initially aiming to put astronauts back on the moon by late 2025, but a series of delays led the Government Accountability Office to conclude it likely won't happen until 2027. China's stated goals are to land on the moon before the end of the decade. I'm Kayla Gaskins reporting.
Coming up here on the National Desk, what new data reveals about a recent rise in home prices, which city saw the biggest increase, then the fastest growing type of fraud in the world, how it works, and who's most often targeted. And many people bring home new pets this time of year. How to make it a smooth transition for family and fur baby. We're back in 90 seconds. Right now, some early data shows many Americans increased their spending this holiday season. According to MasterCard Spending Pulse, retail sales from November 1st to December 24th saw an increase of 3.1% from the same time last year. Now, the expected increase was seen across multiple categories, restaurants seeing one of the largest jumps at almost 8%. The sales were driven by a healthy labor market and wage gains. Returning gifts online this holiday season may present some challenges as many retailers have added fees or even shortened the return window. Amazon will only accept items bought on or after November 1st. Macy's now charges $9.99 to return online orders for shoppers not enrolled in Macy's Rewards program. Also, Marshall's and TJ Maxx's mail return fees have increased to $11.99. Target's online returns are still free with its 90-day return policy for most items. Gift cards are a popular Christmas gift, but many times they end up going unused. Well, here's what you should know. Gift cards expire within 5 years from the time of purchase, though some state laws require longer time periods. It is wise to spend gift cards quickly, as over time its value will decrease and some stores may go out of business, of course. Another option is to sell it on resale sites. For example, Card Cash or Raise is another one. October home prices, those saw the biggest gain of 2023 despite higher mortgage rates. According to the Case-Shiller Home Index, home prices rose 4.8% nationally in October compared with the previous year, 2022. That's a jump from the 4% increase in September and also marks the strongest annual gain seen in 2023. Now, among the top 20 cities, Detroit reporting the largest year-over-year gain in home prices, 8.1%, Detroit, for the month of October. It's the fastest growing form of fraud, and you've probably never heard of it. It's called synthetic identity scams. They're piling up right now, costing the country more than $20 billion. National correspondent Christine Frizzell reports the primary victims are often kids.
It's yet another example of criminals outsmarting law enforcement after beefed up efforts to combat identity theft. Now they're combining a stolen social security number with a fictitious name and date of birth to create a new identity, which is then used to obtain an email address, driver's license, and more.
With some patience, the criminal will spend time building up the credit profile of the synthetic identity. Later, the criminal obtains a large credit limit, maxes it out, and vanishes.
The victims? Sometimes the elderly or homeless people, but more often, children, more than 1 million a year, whose families may not find out for years when they go to apply for a student loan or to buy a car. Other victims are financial institutions, with estimates financial losses will reach $5 billion by 2024, according to the digital identity company Socure.
The one thing I'll say about fraud in particular, it takes the path of least resistance, right? It's like water. It's going to find its way through the nooks and crannies.
Those nooks and crannies seemingly plentiful, especially in the U.S. government and agencies tasked with doling out benefits.
There are nation states and international criminal enterprises that are actively seeking to intercept, will be funding or benefits or gain access to services that are intended for the United States population.
Synthetic identity has now surpassed credit card fraud and identity theft as the fastest growing form of fraud in the world. Experts say it can be tackled with the collaboration by credit reporting agencies working with banks and the federal government to find these manipulated and fabricated identities and essentially kill them before they've taken on a life and identity of their own. In Washington, I'm Christine Frizzell.
New tonight, the South Carolina court clerk who oversaw the trial of convicted murderer Alex Murdaugh is being accused of plagiarism by the co-author of her book. Rebecca Hill's co-author Neil Gordon discovered duplicated writing in the beginning of her book from a draft of a BBC News article. He was reviewing Hill's emails made public by the Colleton County officials last week. When confronted by Gordon, Hill admitted to the similarities, citing deadline pressures. And neither Hill nor BBC could be reached for comment. Russia's defense ministry says Ukrainian forces damaged their naval ship at a base in Crimea in an airstrike using plane-launched guided missiles. Russia's appointed head of Crimea says that one person was killed. Russian officials have not said how bad that ship was damaged, but Ukrainian officials claim the ship is destroyed. And Russia's most prominent opposition leader, Alexei Navalny, published a letter on Tuesday describing an arduous transfer to his new penal colony in the Arctic. The comments were written with a heavy dose of humor and seemed to calm concerns among allies after his 3-week disappearance. Alexei Navalny is a longtime antagonist of President Vladimir Putin of Russia, and his transfer has been expected since September. Sweden is now a step closer to NATO membership. Today, the Turkish Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee approved Sweden's bid to join the Western Military Alliance. Turkey has been holding up the process over its disapproval of how Sweden has treated groups that Turkey considers security threats. Well, now Turkey's General Assembly will have to give its approval. Apple's trying to keep two of its best-selling watches available during a patent dispute. The company filed an emergency motion today asking the court to let it begin selling the watches again until a final decision is reached. The International Trade Commission said Apple infringed on patents of other companies. Apple stopped selling its Series 9 and Ultra 2 watches in response. Electric vehicle prices on the decline as consumer demand cools a bit. U.S. automakers have trimmed production and postponed investments amid declining sales in recent weeks. According to a study by IC Cars, the average price for a used electric vehicle was 33% cheaper this October compared to the previous October. Many consumers are reluctant to switch from gas-powered vehicles to fully electric with concerns over prices, battery range, and charging stations as well. Many similarities exist between the risk of late onset and early onset dementia. That's according to a new study out of the Netherlands. Nearly 4 million people are living with young onset dementia as of a 2021 study. So it's important to do what you can to look after your health, of course. Preventable factors of the disease include smoking, prediabetes, and obesity, high blood pressure, depression, and social isolation. The Centers for Disease Control is warning Americans today that a new variant of COVID-19 could be contributing to a spike in respiratory illnesses. COVID cases now twice what they were just last week across the country. Liz Bonus, a medical reporter, shares the symptoms and what's likely contributing to so many people getting sick now.
Hey there, everybody. Not only are respiratory symptoms on the rise right now, but doctors say if you don't get into the doctor's office to treat at least the flu or COVID-19, you could have those symptoms lingering even longer. And if you don't want to get sick, there are a few steps you might want to start right now.
I have not been sick in a year.
TJ Harrington has discovered the benefit of one of those steps.
My lung capacity has grown exponentially.
TJ took up yoga here at Ohio's Kindred Flow Yoga and Wellness after a serious lung condition put her at risk for complications from the kind of respiratory illnesses going around right now.
COVID, non-COVID, and flu recently. Probably flu the least of the three, though.
Family medicine specialist Dr. Scott Woods says activity can boost immunity, enough to help you at least stay out of the hospital. There are still plenty of admissions, however, he says, coming in here to Ohio's Tri-Health Bethesda North Hospital due to
shortness of breath, difficulty breathing type symptoms, severe cough.
That's consistent with the latest CDC report, which shows nearly half of new COVID-19 cases are linked to the newest COVID-19 variant known as JN1. Cases linked to it appear to have doubled in the U.S. just since last week. It appears to be highly contagious compared to some previous variants, but not as likely to cause severe illness. It is a subvariant of Omicron, so the newest vaccine does appear to help protect against serious illness from it if you do get infected. Travel to family gatherings seems to be a common link with infection. So to stop it, Dr. Woods says first, stay home if you're sick. Second, wear a mask in places with lots of people. Finally, he says, keep your own hands off your own face. Every surface you touch has the potential for germs that are easily transmitted this way. With your health news, I'm Liz Bonus reporting.
And coming up, how employees and volunteers at a Montana restaurant are giving back to their community this holiday season. We're back after this. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter to you. From animal shelters in Texas with advice for new pet owners to a Montana community filling stomachs and hearts in need. We're taking the pulse of America. We begin with those enjoying the wintry weather in Washington state.
The rain was icy, and maybe there was a snowflake or two in there, but there was no doubt that the magic of Christmas was falling for those who traveled up to Snoqualmie Pass.
What are you doing up here today on Christmas?
We gotta have him see some white snow.
Tony Dutt and his 2-year-old son Landon taking a tiny tractor out for a spin before going to Grandma and Grandpa's house.
He's drifting out there.
This is the best gift you could ever have right here.
We're scoping out some places to go sledding, but also where the dogs can enjoy the Christmas too.
One by one, Mira and her boyfriend introduced us to their furry family of 4.
Are you ready for the snow?
Cisco the husky.
Okay, Cisco the bingo.
Bingo the boxer.
I love this. Merry Christmas. Ho, ho, ho.
This year, Ariel Adams spearheaded the annual Christmas dinner at Fork and Spoon. The HRDC's restaurant allows visitors to pay what they can for meals.
I'm from Georgia, so I've got some southern mac and cheese, got some collard greens going.
Adams is excited to make sure everyone in the community has a good holiday. And helping out those in need is something that has a special place in her heart.
Growing up, sometimes we didn't have a lot of food to go around. And so I'm just really excited to give that food to people who need it.
The number of people receiving assistance from Fork and Spoon, the Gallatin Valley Food Bank, and HRDC's other programming has increased this year as the cost of living in Bozeman continues to rise. Because of that, Adams says serving a great Christmas dinner is all the more important.
It's been a hard year. Food costs have skyrocketed, housing and everything. People just wouldn't have a really good holiday without something like this.
Do a lot of prep work trying to get all of that arranged so that everybody feels as prepared as possible.
Austin Pets Alive's dog placement manager Allison Swearingen says bringing in a new pet for the holidays is a big responsibility.
These dogs, they've maybe been here for anywhere from a few days to weeks to maybe even a year longer. So moving to any new home is going to take a decompression and a transition period.
She says it's important to give your new pets lots of space and time to get used to the new home.
Let them sleep. If they want to hang out and just snooze, let them do that. Don't take them to the new brewery around the corner.
And she recommends keeping it separated for a few days before introducing it to kids, other pets, or neighbors.
These animals, they don't know where they are yet, so let's just keep an eye on everybody and make sure we're all being safe.
And coming up here on the National Desk, still no winner of the Powerball as the jackpot continues to climb. How much you could win, and when that next drawing is happening. We're back in 90 seconds. The holidays continue. Today is now the first day of Quanza. The week-long holiday was created in 1966 to honor African Americans' ancestral roots. Now, Quanza celebrates 7 principles. They include creativity, collective responsibility, faith, and purpose as well. A candle on the kinara is lit every night, similar to the menorah in Hanukkah. The Quanza celebration continues through January 1st. As the holiday season starts to wind down a bit, here are some tips on how to get rid of your unwanted holiday decorations and all those things you maybe don't want around anymore, bringing you into the new year. You can drop off real Christmas trees at a local recycling center or place them outside for curbside pickup if your city has that option. You want to consider composting leftover food at home. Also reimagine some other dishes or share some of that with your neighbors and friends that maybe come and visit. Pass along unwanted gifts to someone who can use them, or of course you can always donate them to your local community center, church, or whoever might be in need. I know nobody won the Powerball jackpot on Christmas. That's a big gift everybody was after, but the growing prize would still be a great way to end the year. It's not too late. The jackpot now worth an estimated $685 billion. The cash value, we take it all at once, that's $344 million. The next drawing is happening tomorrow night, so you still can win that before the end of the year. That's going to do it for this edition of the National Desk. We invite you to join us again this evening for the evening edition of the National Desk. You want to check your local listings for the exact time. I'm Eugene Ramirez. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tonight.